iris constitution based on physical integrity. The overall structure of the iris stroma, which is made up of the iris fibers, helps us determine the physical integrity. Keep in mind that the structure of the stroma fibers is genetically controlled and remains the same from birth until death, unless there is an accident, illness, or injury that would change the stroma pattern. This is why the iris structure is being used for identification in places such as airports and banks. However, based on clinical research, we know that tight iris fibers represent genetic strength, while looser fibers represent a need to work on building the body throughout life. There was a very famous Russian study that was done by Dr. Viktor Yakimovich of Russia on iris structure in the Kiev Municipal Hospital from November 1990 through August 1994. For this study, he took 983 clinically healthy people between the ages of 25 and 30 years. They were required to undergo complete medical examinations. Iris photographs were taken, and based on their iris patterns, they were divided into 5 separate categories: very strong, tightly woven iris fibers, good iris fibers, satisfactory iris fibers, enfeebled, loosely woven iris fibers, and weak, very separated iris fibers. The result of the study showed that the people in the weak category were sick 17 times more often than the people in the very strong category. Those in the very strong and good categories proved to be the most reliable for stressful professional jobs. The study showed that it would not be advisable to put the people in the enfeebled and weak categories into stressful positions. Those in the satisfactory category would be somewhat reliable in strenuous activities. The study shows that with careful iris analysis and medical examinations, it is possible to provide a picture of the physical and inherited characteristics of an individual, as well as predict how he or she will handle stress, irritation, and physical depletion. In this chapter, we will look at what the iris structures look like and study the 4 basic subtypes based on iris structure and how they affect the health of the body. They are called neurogenic, anxiety-tetanic, polyglandular, and connective tissue. And now we're going to discuss the iris subtypes based on iris structure. The neurogenic, the anxiety-tetanic, the polyglandular, and the connective tissue. First, we have the neurogenic pattern, and in these eyes we see very tight fibers. The fibers are woven tightly together. And these people are very strong people. They resist illness well, and they can bounce back quickly after they have been sick. So in the neurogenic iris subtype, we see very tight fibers. These people are hard workers with strong drive, industrious, diligent. They work till they drop. They have a strong ability to resist disease, and they heal easily. They do have a weakness in the central and autonomic nervous systems, and they're often very intense people. They're very sensitive. They may have headaches, nervous system disorders, or skin eruptions. They may have ulcers or vascular spasms. That is why we call it the neurogenic iris subtype, because we have to really take care of their nervous systems. The anxiety-tetanic subtype, you might think of the word Titanic, but these people tend to be anxious. They have grooves around the iris of the eye. Here we see the anxiety-tetanic iris subtype. They have contraction furrows or grooves that go around the iris of the eye. The grooves can be in several different zones. They have a tendency for neuromuscular cramping, tense muscles, jaw clenching. They have tension, and that may aggravate colitis, tachycardia, angina pectoris, circulatory disorders, spinal subluxation, temporal mandibular joint disorders, blood sugar metabolism errors. They tend to create lots of stress, feel victimized by their stress. They are inclined to be type A behavior. They often are highly diversified, motivated, ambitious. They have many things going on at once. They feel they are under a great deal of tension in life, but it's usually psychosomatic or in their minds. They tend to have headaches, heart stress, thyroid deficiency, muscle tension, and they usually always have mineral deficiencies. The polyglandular pattern. These people have lacuna going around the collarette. So here we have lacuna going around the collarette that look like daisy petals. They have deficiencies and weaknesses in the glandular system overall. Weakness in the gastrointestinal system and irregularity of the bowels. Glandular function insufficiency, digestive, pancreas, gallbladder, adrenal, pituitary, pineal, thyroid, parathyroid, and gonads. You want to look in the areas where the lacuna are located, and remember these are genetic tendencies. They tend to have decreased hormonal or endocrine glandular function. There's a possible weakness in the heart, especially if there's a lacuna in that area, liver, kidneys, and pancreas areas. These people usually crave sweets and have a tendency to be hypoglycemic. They may have hypoglycemia and or diabetes in the family. The connective tissue subtype pattern. These people have fibers that are very loose throughout the iris without any specific pattern. The connective tissue iris subtype, we see loose fibers throughout, wide open fibers, many lacuna and crypts. They tend to have a weakness in the elasticity of the connective tissue, and that can cause possible prolapse of the organs, especially abdominal, varicosities, hemorrhoids, hernias, spinal disorders, subluxation, scoliosis, or sway back. They may have postural difficulties and they injure easily. Their minerals don't tend to hold well, especially calcium. Their bowels and organs may not be held in place strongly. Any large lacuna in the abdominal, pelvic, urogenital, and spinal areas should be given special attention. Check for adrenal weakness as well. Their requirements include moderate to greater recuperation times depending on the degree of fibrous separation and variables of the physical environment and therapy. This is a wonderful chart to show us the subtypes by color under lymphatic, overacid, febrile, hydrogenoid, uric acid diathesis, scurfrim. Under biliary, ferrum chromatose and hydrogenoid. Under hematogenic, ferrum chromatose. And the subtypes by structure. Under all three types, lymphatic, biliary, and hematogenic, we have the neurogenic, anxiety tetanic, polyglandular, and connective tissue subtypes.